Hello, everyone. My name is 𝐒𝐚𝐦, and this is Overtime. Thank you for joining us. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐬, who is a CNN reporter on the Pentagon. She's part of the Pentagon Press Corp for CNN, has gone on Blue Sky and reported a letter that has been directed from the Pentagon Public Affairs Office, directed today, January 31st, to the entire Pentagon Press Association. Letter is as follows. Subject: new annual media rotation program for Pentagon Press Corps. For over half a century, the Pentagon Press Corps has benefited from working out of individual office spaces that provide coveted and open access to some of the department's top military and civilian leaders, known as the Correspondence Corridor. This office space, loaned to media outlets by the Secretary of Defense, stands as a tribute to the importance of the Democrat. Wow. Sorry, folks. I'm going to take a breath and continue. It's been a long day. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐚𝐬 is here, and he has pointed out I really do owe Taco an apology. If you saw our previous show earlier, I said, well, how worse can it get? And less than an hour after that show, talking about the possible dissolution of Congress by Donald Trump and the possible overthrow of the U.S. government by Elon Musk and all of that other good stuff. Here we are talking about the removal of not the removal of the press corps. It's even worse than that. So let me continue.
I know it's been a difficult day.
Yes.
If you do want to send me the copy of it, I can read it for you.
Oh yes, that it's going to be a little harder.
That's probably going to be difficult.
I've got it, but I do appreciate it. And while I'll take a moment, say we've already got a super chat, $5, Aaron Colson. I absolutely blame this on Nick saying, how can we get even lower earlier? Yeah, I have already DM'd Dom and told him, oops, my bad. I literally on the last show I said that, and he's just like, how could you? And then boom, here we go. So we just got another super chat. I will get to it, but I want to finish this. This is really extraordinarily important. Because I'm struggling with it, let me tell you essentially what it says. There has always been a White House press corps until Trump. There has always been a Pentagon press corps, not always, but for modern history. The purpose of this is actually twofold. First, it's our oversight. It's the civilian oversight of the Pentagon, of the Office of the President, and the press corps. It's first is oversight, but the second and part of that is actually to keep people calm in times of crisis. When the World Trade Centers were hit, the press corps, the White House press corps, was already had top secret clearance and was able to stay with the President of the United States. And while they couldn't report where he was, they could report that he was in fact alive. The reason for this is they had been pre-vetted by the NSA, FBI, everybody else, to be allowed to be with the president essentially at all times. So they're on the Air Force One, Marine One, whatever. So it's important to have the press corps there because they can communicate, and they are the eyes and ears for the average American, for the civilian population, as to what's going on. And it's needed every day, not just during 9/11. So getting back to having an independent and important press corps, they are talking, this letter is talking about the offices, which have been loaned to the Pentagon Press Corps by the most generous Secretary of Defense. That stands as a tribute to the importance of the department. It stands as tribute to the importance the department has long placed on informing the public about the U.S. military and all it does to project peace through strength. It also honors the many correspondents who have put their lives on the line and in many cases died while covering our finest in battle. In order to broaden access to the limited space of the correspondence corridor to outlets that have not previously enjoyed the privilege and journalistic it's not a fucking privilege. Working for the government is a privilege. Covering it is a responsibility. The journalistic value of working from physical office spaces in the Pentagon. Beginning February 14th, 2025, the Office of the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs will implement a new annual media rotation program for those dedicated media spaces. Each year, one outlet from each medium, print, online, television, and radio, that has enjoyed working from the physical offices in the Pentagon will rotate out of the building to allow a new outlet from the same medium that has not had the unique opportunity to report as a resident member of the Pentagon Press Corps. Apparently, after firing all of these people, they have run out of office spaces. This year, the following news outlets will begin their rotation by vacating their physical office spaces effective Friday, February 14th, 2025. The New York Times, NBC News, National Public Radio, and Politico. In their place, the following outlets from each medium will be invited to move into the correspondence corridor workspaces formerly occupied by the above four outlets. The New York Post, One America News Network, Breitbart News Network, and Huffington Post. To be clear, the outlets that vacate the spaces loaned to them by the Secretary will remain as full members of the Pentagon Press Corps. They will continue to enjoy the same media access to the Pentagon and will be able to attend and cover briefings and be considered for travel with civilian and military leaders in the department that they have had previously. The only change will be giving up their physical workspaces in the building to allow new outlets to have their turn to become resident members of the Pentagon Press Corps. Thank you in advance for participating in the Pentagon Press Corps annual media rotation program. By turning over the office spaces loaned to you by the Secretary, you will ensure that new outlets have the same opportunity you have enjoyed, covering our nation's finest from up close from office spaces inside the walls of the Pentagon. That released, I'm not sure when today, but we have just learned of it by the Assistant to the Secretary of Defense, saying that the New York Times, NBC News, NPR, and Politico would all have to be rotated out. I have noted that every one of those are reasonably left-leaning, not necessarily far left. New York Times is the furthest left, but the New York Times is still not radical left, and NPR is NPR. Okay. They have been replaced with all. The New York Post is the least right of. No, actually, Huffington Post is on the left. So the online news that they've replaced, Huffington Post, is in fact on the left, but certainly not far left. Okay. It's not near any of what got replaced. Having said that, Breitbart, America, OANN, and New York Post are all either pretty far right or extreme right. That's not
One
an
America
accident.
News Network. Yeah, One America News Network is too far right for even me to bother watching.
Yeah. So what we have is the Pentagon repeatedly reminding people that these offices are on loan, which, while technically true, that's like saying the also that's true of the press corps on Air Force One. Air Force One is not required to give them that space, but there's a reason they do it and have for a very long time. The oversight of the Pentagon is not just the job of the commander in chief and or to some extent Congress, but of every American citizen, and the press needs access. To be fair, I'm no fan of Breitbart or One America News Network, but if they're credentialed, I think they should have the same access everybody else should have. I'm not saying that they should be gotten rid of, but dear Lord, how many people are being fired from the federal government at this point, and they're saying they don't have enough space for left-wing news organizations and moderately left. I mean, again, New York Times is not socialist, and replacing them with some of the furthest right. Holy smoke! Any thoughts, Xandering?
There's so much shit has come through today, and then to take very well established media that has been there for decades and say, oh yeah, we're going to go ahead and rotate these people out. Don't worry. I mean, you can still attend, but we're going to take your offices in the actual building away from you, and we're going to give them to mostly very right, and in some cases extremely right news outlets. That's a bit concerning, because it's like, okay, well, they're not banning them from covering the Pentagon yet. However, this would be a step along the road doing that. And after looking at everything else that's going on, I have to seriously consider that is the step they're taking on this road. So that's very concerning.
And I should have. There's let's see. So, just out of curiosity, I want to check. There's a couple of different ways to. Dear Lord, how do you spell Breitbart? Well, I can just do a. This is
B-R-I-E.
Okay, thank you. B-R-I-E.
It should come up after that.
Yeah,
you don't search for things, do you?
Well, I'm trying to do, and
it's okay. It's B-R-E-I-T.
I think
B-A-R-T.
Perfect. Thank you. No, the funny thing is, we're still a little behind the times. We've been doing this for a very long time, but we took about a year-long break, and so I don't remember to reactivate some of our subscriptions and systems and yada yada yada. And we've got a tool for measuring, ostensibly for measuring how far left or right a news source is. And in fact, there's what is it? There's another one that's been coming out that's been pretty well rating these organizations, and what is it? I've forgotten. And we've got a subscription, and we just haven't been using it because A, we've been busy, and B, we were down for a year. So I forgot that it's like, oh yeah, do you know? Remembering how to friggin' produce a show and not close my own window has been a challenge. All right, getting back to the issue at hand. Thank you for the assistance there earlier. Ground news. Yeah, that's right. That's I've been looking at ground news. I've been enjoying it. And that was the one I was looking at. And we have a. But there's a couple of other organizations that do, and you have to type in the name accurately, I guess, and it doesn't do autofill for you, so I'm screwed. All right. So to say again, and let's talk about this because what you said was interesting. I mean, the letter says that these offices are going to swap out yearly these spaces, but it's very suspicious their choices of media to pull out versus what they're putting in, and it's definitely not balanced. And the excuse that they don't have the office space is preposterous because it's four news organizations. If you want to just give them four offices, unless I'm missing something, and according to Elon Musk, half the workforce is going to get fired in the United States unless all of it's going to be military because we plan on invading Canada or Mexico or Greenland, but all of that would be preposterous. So I don't know. I think this is a pretext to getting rid of any sources that aren't necessarily immediately going to say whatever Trump said. And remember, Breitbart was insane up before the first term in support of Trump. This is not a balanced person, let alone organization. So that's it. The just to
If I recall,
yep.
if I recall correctly, Andrew Breitbart is no longer actually associated with Breitbart News. I could be mixing events up because that happened a while ago, but I'm pretty sure it got taken over and he's not affiliated with it anymore. However, OAN, that they are absolutely very far right wing and they are hardcore Trump supporters. I mean, that's just essentially the MAGA news network, and they're so radically right, and they make such horrible arguments about conservatism that I can't even watch them. I don't take them seriously.
Andrew Breitbart, Bregwin said Andrew Breitbart died, which I vaguely recall.
Okay, that's why he's not associated with it anymore. Oh, well, I mean, that's because that happened in a couple of the conservative things where they were started and they started off good and like had good intentions, but they got, co-opted or corrupted by needing money. So they pushed farther right and started becoming more extreme. And then, several people would leave, and it's like I could not keep up with them all.
I vaguely remember One American News Network did have like at least one of their pundits was a Christian nationalist kind of Jesus sent Trump types.
I completely stopped watching them. I think Liz Wheeler is on. I think that was her name, and she was like MAGA left and right, and yeah, I couldn't keep up with their. It was just pure propaganda. It wasn't news. It was propaganda. It was complete hardcore right spin on it, and it's like I'm a fairly conservative person and would generally like to hear the conservative, and I was like, okay, well, this is touted as one of the more right leaning, so let's listen to what they have to say, because I do listen to outright socialists as well, or self-avowed socialists about their opinions and stuff too. I couldn't. I mean, just the bastardization of what it means to be conservative, it was terrible. I could not. I don't consider them a news source. I consider them a propaganda outlet.
All right. Well, and I, for the most part, consider the New York Post that as well, but not to the same degree. The New York Post at least pretends. All right. So, for those of you just joining us, a memorandum has come out from the Pentagon to the Pentagon Press Association that is ordering by February 14th. The New York Times, NBC News, NPR, and Politico to vacate their spaces from the Pentagon to make room for the New York Post, One America News Network, Breitbart News Network, and HuffPost. This is part of a new program where they will be rotating 4 news organizations, one from every type of media, print, TV, radio, and online. They will be rotating each once per year. The obvious concerns with this There are obvious faults in what they're saying and what they're talking about. They're saying that this is because of a lack of space, and they want to give more people better access. The problem is all of the people that they're giving access to are on the far right. The ones they're taking access to from are on the left, and their explanation is prima facie absurd because presumably there's going to be a lot of space in the Pentagon after all of the efficiencies made in firing people. The argument that they're not losing their press credentials, the problem is they're not physically in the building, and if the Pentagon doesn't want to let them in, they don't have to. It's as simple as stopping them at the door, and in fact, there's a suggestion in this, the way this was worded, there's a suggestion that they're going to be seeing a loss of their credentials reasonably soon. Let's see. They will be considered for all travel with civilian and military leaders in the department as they have previously. So I'm not optimistic that, within a few months they're not going to be allowed in the building for whatever reason, stricter security, DEF CON, they've got gum on their shoe, I don't know what it is, but you can't really do your work if you don't have access, and that's the other problem, which is they cover stories 24/7, and there are people occupying those offices in the Pentagon 24/7. They can no longer do that. So,
well, and it gets even a little bit more insidious than just that as well, because they're being kicked out, so now they're going to have to find office space someplace else. Well, if anything kind of breaking goes on, or any kind of situation comes up, the very first people that are going to have access, because they're there, are these new networks that they're putting in. I hesitate to call them all networks. So they're going to get, they're going to be right there. They're going to get the breaking news. They're going to be going, live with their news coverage, and they can put their entire spin. And at least one of them absolutely will put a spin on everything, because that's just what they do. And so that news story is going to go out probably before any of the other networks can even get to the building, even if they don't prohibit them from coming into the building, because they're going to have to take the time to notify someone, which would probably be notified by hopefully a friendly, if there's somebody friendly, maybe somebody from the Huffington Post will give the New York Times a call and say, hey, this is going on. Maybe you should get somebody down there. That's assuming that happens. They still have to get up, get dressed, get their shit, and get down there. And then get into the building, go through security, then they can be there. Well, by that time, 50 stories have already gone out by these other news networks, painting exactly what's going on. With the way social media is, something catches and it becomes viral, and that's what everybody's talking about. So the view of these networks is what's going to go out first. That's what everyone's going to see first, and people have a tendency to believe what they see first. That's why when somebody has to print a retraction, it's usually on page A7 and it's in small print. The damage has already been done by the headline. So
it sounds like
that's the insidious thing.
So yeah, in fact, actually, if nobody is friendly to you in the Pentagon, the reality is the way you're first going to hear about it, if you're in the New York Times, is from One America News. That's where you're going to hear it from.
Yep.
And you're going
to be the first persons, and you're going to be going, oh, this happened in the Pentagon? They're reporting on this right now? Oh, crap, we need to get somebody down there to figure out what's going on so we can report on this. And yeah, it's too late. I mean, I'm trying to give the cheeriest best case scenario as to why this is pretty chilling. Even if they don't outright block them.
Duncan, you asked the obvious question that I did not think of, which is how many offices are there in the correspondence corridor, which is what it's called? How many offices do they have for what is it, for press? It turns out, and I looked this up while 𝐒𝐨𝐮𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 was talking. It turns out nobody knows because it changes every year as they add and remove based on need. And they don't have an actual corridor. So there are 10 of the radial corridors in the Pentagon, 5-sided, and there is no specific corridor. They're just assigned offices, and I would assume they try to keep them reasonably close together so that they can work together and or share and communicate. But it's not a physical corridor. It's what they call sort of the block, a random assortment of offices reasonably close together, and nobody knows how many there are because they change every year based on need, which is slightly odd because that would seem to contradict what the assistant to the Secretary of Defense said in their letter, that they're short on space and need to pull.
The other thing from a question in the chat that kind of starts to bug me is, and Kristen asked it, I'm more concerned about things not being reported. That actually doesn't, I guess maybe. What gets me is that they say, okay, we're going to notify the press of something that's going on or what we're doing. And then the press is like, that's not interesting enough news. We're not printing it. And then nothing happens. And then, months later, they're like, wait a minute, what? The Pentagon did what? What do you mean? How did we not know this? And the Pentagon can honestly say, hey, we told you guys exactly what was going on. I don't know why you got a problem with it.
Yep.
And they would be absolutely correct. And, things not getting reported. So you don't know what's going on. And of course, then my dark mind, especially after everything that's gone on today, immediately goes to, well, some of these places I could absolutely see completely covering up what they're doing and covering for them.
Yeah, I especially the one, I mean, if they think he's Jesus, which, and you had asked why you see why I brought that up. You're like, are we really going to get in? Yeah, that's what they're starting to. I mean, this isn't funny. So I'm going to hit the super chats, and then Dunk wants to know what we're talking about, and I don't know if we'll do at least one more rundown. I have notified Dom that I owe Taco another apology, and he said, yes, I do, and he is unfortunately quite correct. So Dunk on You, $20. Dunk on You, thank you again very much for your continued support. It also, the money aside, it means a lot to us that you appreciate the work enough to donate. So we notice that. Thank you. Lots of strange stuff going on. Trump is going to ruin the USA. Hard to object with that. Also gifted 5 in-time memberships. Dunk on You once again. Thank you very much for your continued support, sir. We really do appreciate it. Linda H. gifted 1 in-time membership. Thank you, Linda H. for that gift. Aaron Colson, $5. I'm not a scientist, but Nick may be able to undo this curse if he goes outside, turns around 3 times and spits. It is absolutely worth a try. I really screwed up on the last show, and it was funny because as I said it, I was like, I didn't really just say that, did I? And literally both 𝐒𝐨𝐿𝐴 and Dom came down on me at the same time. They're like, did you just say it? I was just like, I'm sorry. Oh, dear Lord.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it can't hurt, and who knows, maybe it will help. If things aren't going right, and it's like, if I could, I would start getting up on the other side of my bed, because that's not going to hurt anything, and it just might help, except that I only have one side of my bed that I can actually get in and out of.
UTV and Ham said, I will resist to my last breath against this. $5 super chat. It brings in mind a line. I hope I get it right. It's been a long time since I've had to think about this line, let alone say it. A martyr is willing to die for his country, but a hero would much rather live for it. This stuff is headed in a direction that is profoundly concerning, and Titan sent me this, and I looked at it, and for a second I said, do we really need to go with this? And I couldn't believe I asked that question. I was just like, they are replacing, and this, again, 1933 was when they started replacing the media in Germany. There is very little that happened in Germany, both in terms of how Hitler rose to power and the mechanics behind getting the civilians either to be ignorant of it or to be too afraid to oppose it or to genuinely want to get involved. There are very few things there that didn't happen here, and as Andrew had pointed this out earlier, but I think it was behind the scenes on a previous show, most of what we're seeing aren't sufficient conditions, but all of them are necessary. And we're seeing an increasing number of necessary conditions. It's very concerning. So I think that I'm not gonna make that quote. I think that with luck and a lot of work, as Ethan had suggested, men of conscience can make the world a better place, and education is a part of that. So bringing you this kind of information is a part of that. And sometimes it's not enough. We get more near misses than we get hits, but we do get hits, and this is looking worse and worse literally every hour. And I think it was Ethan had said that this has to be done fast when it's done. That's true. And just the pace alone is alarming. So anyways, thank you very much for your super chat, and let's all hope that it doesn't come to that. I'm going to do one more very quick rundown. For those of you just joining us, the Assistant to the Secretary of Defense has issued a memorandum for the Pentagon Press Corp saying that they are going to start swapping out various press agencies for new ones that have not had an equal opportunity. They are swapping out, they are removing the New York Times, NBC, NPR, and who's NPR ever offended in like all their time? Have they ever? Okay. NPR and Politico, these offices will be removed. The assistant to the secretary has made it clear that they are not having their credentials pulled. They simply will not be given offices in the building, so they can't work from the building. In their place will be the New York Post, One America News Network, Breitbart News, and Huffington Post. That is staggering, especially that One America News could even remotely be considered a... That is... All right, I've given my rundown. Everybody's been very helpful and supportive. I see ProLib has joined us. Yes, Taco, yet another. I will go out. It's raining. I will go out. I'll spit, rotate around. I don't care what I have to do. They are replacing the New York Times with One American. Jesus, I can't even. That's it. Yeah, that's the rundown. Xandering, any final thoughts?
I really hate to be engaged in doomer porn because I see it all over the place. Yet this still needs, it's, again, like I pointed out, there's lots and lots of necessary steps, and none of them are actually sufficient. And we haven't reached that sufficiency point yet. So you keep an eye on everything. However, all of these steps are pointed down a path we don't want to go down.
And you had pointed out, I don't remember if it was in the previous show or we sometimes do sometimes we'll chat after a show or when we should be working and doing a postmortem, but we also do postmortems. But having said that, we'll talk after the show. And you had said this, that oftentimes when Ukraine was invaded, it was in fact, at first, Nazi sympathizers defending Ukraine. The reason is it's the far right that's going to be the first to be willing to go and fight. So just on the very initial invasion, like within the first few hours to day or two, but it very quickly got a proper military, and somebody else had pointed this out. Yeah, there are Nazis in every military. There's Nazis in the U.S. military, but it's not. They don't run the military. They don't. So they took care of that problem. But it's the far right that you'd usually think would jump to the defense. In this case, you'd think the ones that would most want to defend the Constitution and defend the country are the far right. And you put it much better. I don't know why I'm talking for you. If you can reconstitute the thought, please.
Oh, geez, now you're going to make me recapture the moment that was special. I was like, all of the people who are out there touting, hey, especially the people who are strong proponents of the Second Amendment, one of the driving reasons behind that, well, actually the biggest driving reason behind that, is to defend against governmental tyranny. And I pointed out that, hey, but the problem here is that all of those people that are setting themselves up to say and purporting to support hey, we need to watch out for a tyrannical government, and we need to be prepared in case the government ever does become tyrannical. These are all the same people that are supporting Trump. So it's like, how do you square that circle? It's like, what do you do now? All of the people who might be actually willing to say, hey, this government is becoming tyrannical, and we need to do something about this, preferably peacefully, unless there's no other means, and things start turning violent. But all of those same people that talk about it constantly are supporting Trump, the very person that is appearing to become tyrannical. And I'm sitting here shaking my head, going, well, one, I had to kind of sort of radically adjust my thoughts about what's coming, because I honestly did not buy into any of the more left-leaning, what I thought more or less was propaganda about how bad Trump was going to be. And he was going to do all these things. It was going to be the end of the republic. We weren't going to have our democracy anymore. He was going to usher in some fascist dictatorship. And I completely dismissed that. I'm like, look, we had Trump 1.0. We knew what he did. It's pretty much going to be the same thing. There's going to be a lot of people trying to stymie him. He's probably not going to get much of anything done. And it's going to be a big kind of nothing burger. It's like, we survived it one time, we'll survive it this time. It's not that big of a deal. And then he came into office and actually started doing a hell of a lot more than he did last time, and seemed to hit the ground running. And I was like, oh, well, maybe he's got a bit of a fire up his ass. He's going to try and do a bunch of this stuff. He's using some, I think, underhanded tactics to try and get some of his shit through. And some of the stuff I kind of sort of agree with in principle, but have big problems with how it's being done. So while I might have sympathy for the reasons, or at least the stated reasons behind some of the stuff that's being done, how you do it is incredibly important, and I don't really see any good ways that have been attempted, or at least proposed, to solve some of the issues that we're facing.
Well, and
so I was like, okay, well, he's getting he's getting a little bit more energetic about this stuff. He's doing more things, and I have a feeling that we're just going to end up having to plow through a bunch of the stuff, and a lot of it's going to be challenged. A lot of stuff's going to be tied up in court, and that was on all his first day, all of his executive orders. It's like there's going to be a lot of TROs put in place. Things are going to be stayed, and so I still wasn't super all that concerned. Then today happened, and I was prepared to talk about Trump, or about tariffs. Because I was like, I can't believe he's actually going through with this. This is really bad economic policy to be so blatant or so broad with tariffs. And then I get on the show, and they're like, oh, by the way, all of the, 40 people have been resigned. We've cleared out, the leaders of the FBI. Musk is now in there and all these different governmental agencies trying to take all the information, take over these computers. He's actually locked people out of the Office of Personnel Management, I think is what it was.
Yep.
And locked them out of their own systems. And he's got all of the, and I'm sitting here going, oh, wait a minute. That's like really bad. That's not a good thing. Why is this happening? And it literally, that whole show, I believe if you will go back and watch it, which I recommend you do, I didn't say a whole lot. And then you're like, well, how do you feel about this? I'm kind of at a loss. That's my brain going through a radical reassessment of what's happening. And going, it's not going to just be whatever. He's actually doing quite a lot of the things that many of the people on the left that I was kind of laughing at, saying, I think you're just being sensationalist or over dramatic or not hyperbolizing.
Hyperbolic.
Yeah. Just, hyperbolic anti-Trumpism. And it's like, wait a minute, he's doing these things. He is genuinely trying to do many of these things. And while I can't point to any particular one of them and say, oh, this is right here, this is the straw that's going to break the camel's back, but all of these steps are necessary. And I'm very concerned now that he's going to hit that sufficient mark. And it appears that he's certainly trying.
Yeah, I think that's his goal is indisputable. In fact, I will say this, which is that I remember when January 6th happened, we covered it, and it was bad. We didn't know how bad. We hadn't seen all the footage, but we had seen some. But I remember trying to give every charity that I could to everybody involved. But I remember distinctly the day I was like, you have to call them insurrectionists. That's what they were doing. They were trying to overthrow the government. There's zero. This was not just a random mob. And you, when you were just talking, said that, I think you said he purportedly or said possibly trying to become a dictator. And I was like, I have reached the point where, as far as I'm concerned, the official position of In Time is that this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to overthrow the U.S. government. And I don't see any charity that could permit anyone to think anything but that. And B, his success rate thus far is pretty alarming.
Well, and I think one of the things too is it's like I didn't vote for Trump anytime. I did not want to. I've never voted for Trump, and I wasn't a Trump supporter either. Especially after what I saw in his first term, it was like I was not impressed. It wasn't the cataclysmic doomsday event that everybody thought it was going to be when he was elected the first time, and I was going, hey, what did he do in his? Because Trump says so much stuff. I mean, my God, shut that man up sometimes. So it's like, how do you take things for serious? It's so many things that he said he was going to do in his first term, never got anywhere close to getting accomplished. And, so maybe it's just normalcy bias. I'm sure it's normalcy bias that lulled me into thinking, Trump 2.0 is going to be essentially a rerun of Trump 1.0. It's like, we're going to get a bunch of stuff that he's going to claim we were winning on. And it's like, okay, yeah, you renamed something and made it slightly worse and called it a win. Okay. Is that really what we're going to do? And then I figured there'd be probably a couple of points in there that really angered me. Like when he sent the Mobiles into Portland to abduct people off the street without any kind of notification of who they were or where they were going to secret courts. That bothered me a lot. We did an entire show on that. I figured we'd probably get a few of those, maybe one or two more. So I was like, okay, we'll maybe pay attention a little bit more to some of these things and definitely, cover them and try and get out the word out that, hey, this is not good. I was not happy with the things that Trump did in his first term. I certainly did not want him to be elected the second time. But I also didn't think that it was going to be, like end of the republic style threat. I figured we were going to get a rerun of Trump 1.0. And we're definitely not getting that. So now I'm even less happy that he was elected.
So let me, we do need to wrap up. Jade 4D asked a good question, and as Andrew and I, especially since we talk a lot, we sometimes speak in shorthand and can also use metaphors a little easier with each other because we talk a lot. But I think what we're referring to here when we're talking about sufficient is essentially what you said, which is once he's hit sufficient, what that means is that he has taken over the U.S. government. It does not exist in the way that it was intended even remotely by the Constitution, and laws as we understand them no longer apply. And the most common example of that would be Hitler in, I don't know when you'd say he officially, what act broke the camel's back. I usually say it's when the military swore an oath to Hitler instead of the chancellor. Once that was done and the military was swearing that oath, I think it's over. We're not there yet, but boy, does this look like we're headed there in as rapidly a direction as possible. The reply letter that we read on the last show, which was only hours ago by the FBI, suggests to me what Ethan had said is true and offers some comfort, which is that there are people such as the FBI, who are very aware of what's happening. That letter was very carefully written. The letter from, I think it was the director of the FBI, was a fuck you to Donald Trump. It was worded much more politely, but that's exactly what it was. And it also was, don't worry, I'll get back to you by Monday, which means right now he's trying to figure out what to do. I got no idea what he's going to do, but I'm heartened that there are people who see this. It's clear he sees it. So,
Well, and some of the difficult things too is some of the things that he's talking about, I agree with in principle. Reducing the size and scope of the federal government. I agree with that. I think our government has gotten too large, too big. It's doing too many things. It attracts corruption like you wouldn't believe. So I believe that it does that. I would love to see a smaller federal government that does less things. But the way that Trump is going about trying to cut the size of government, I cannot believe that I've been in so many arguments with people who are ostensibly on the same side that I'm on about, cheering the things that he's doing, stopping, let's stop welfare, let's do all these other things. And I'm the one that has to say, wait a minute, you can't just do that. It's like we've spent 250 years getting to this point. You can't undo this in 4 years. You're going to hurt a lot of people. Do I think the federal government should be involved in welfare programs? No, I don't. I think that should be a state responsibility. I don't think the federal government should be doing that. Is Social Security a good deal? It's such a great deal that Congress exempted itself. Except that people have come to rely on it. It's like you cannot just do away with it. You can't just go and fire half the government and expect everything to be okay. It's like there needs to be a much better, well thought out plan on how do we reverse these trends and actually get ourselves to a position where people don't need these services, or that we transition these services into state control. You don't just say, okay, that's it, we're done.
Well, and the reality is he's got no interest in doing that, I think. He's not interested. He doesn't care about the size of the government per se. He doesn't care about welfare. He doesn't care about helping anybody. He doesn't care about savings. He cares about taking as much control as humanly possible. So in reality, I think there's that I can see. I would have said a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, I would have said, you know what, I might agree with something on Trump here, here, and here. The reality is I don't think I agree with anything Trump has said. Because even if I agreed with technically what he was saying, it was all towards an end that I disagree with. I think he's a dictator. I think that's his goal. I think he wants to take over the United States. I don't think there is any possible conclusion one can reach other than that.
It certainly appears that that is the case.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for yet another show tonight. And we will, it may behoove us to, for downtime, I don't know, we're going to make a decision, all of us here at In Time, for a couple of different shows. We may have an After Dark call-in show. We haven't decided on that. It really depends on a lot of things. The other thing is it may be good to have a downtime, either just to everyone blow off steam. Those shows are a lot of fun, and we often avoid this stuff together, or have one where we can try to see where we can find solace in what's going on, and while still having a sober talk about this. Commander is usually very good at that kind of thing. So we will, no, dunk, no. Dunk on you, no. Bad dunk on you. Bad boy. Don't, no. Please
I
do.
Actually,
What?
Really found this hilarious. I want to read it because I'm a little depressed.
Okay.
A redhead tells her blonde stepsister, "I slept with a Brazilian." The blonde replies, "Oh my God, you slut. How many is a Brazilian?"
Let's not do blonde jokes going forward.
It was funny, and I wanted some levity.
I very much sympathize and empathize with the sentiment.
Okay, fine. Here's a much better one, because I have to end tonight on a more positive note. While I was in the port, they have a little shop down there where you can go get like a drink or something.
If this is about you getting hookers again, I really don't know if we should do. Okay.
No, it's not. You'll like this one. It's in theme too, for In Time. And so it's like a little port shop. Well, so I went in there, and they had a whole bunch of really cool wristwatches, and I haven't had worn a wristwatch since I was in the Navy. I was
actually
bored,
what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut you off because we wanted to go for only half an hour, and we've gone now over an hour, and I need to get going. Yeah, it's been about an hour. So let me cut you off. Like I said, we may do a downtime. Join our Discord, and we will keep you apprised of any new shows or what we're doing. Thank you for joining us, and with luck, you won't see us until we have a scheduled show. Have a good night, everyone, and take care.